This is Ag Matters PM from the Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network, brought to you by the Iowa Soybean Association, your daily recap of the information that affects Iowa's farmers, producers, and consumers, right here in the heart of the heartland. With reports from our award-winning broadcast team of Dustin Hoffman, Riley Smith, and Mark Magnuson. Now, from the IARN studios in Des Moines, here's Riley Smith.
Good day and welcome to Ag Matters PM on the Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network. I'm Riley Smith. Today is Thursday, October 24th of 2024. We're so glad you can join us for today's show. In today's episode, I have an update on some new cattle vaccine technology that is going to be very effective against bovine respiratory disease, could save potentially $1 billion for the cattle industry. This is a professor from Louisiana State University, Dr. Shafiqul Chowdhury, and we'll also be speaking with Joe Allen. He's the executive director of the Bayh-Dole Coalition. They've been working together to make sure that Dr. Chowdhury's research will be able to be sold after that and really kind of make sure it gets into the mainstream marketplace for farmers to use. But before we get into any of that, let's take a listen to a word from our sponsor, the Iowa Soybean Association and the Soy Checkoff.
Iowa Soybean Association is driven to deliver for Iowa's 40,000 soybean farmers. We're proud to provide objective agronomic research, a helping hand with soil and water stewardship, and timely industry news powered by the Soybean Checkoff. Learn more at iasoybeans.com.
Welcome back to Ag Matters PM on the Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network. I'm Riley Smith. Well, as I mentioned earlier, had a sit-down conversation with Louisiana State University professor Dr. Shafiqul Chowdhury, as well as the executive director for the Bayh-Dole Coalition, Joe Allen, to discuss Dr. Chowdhury's innovation in cattle vaccines, as well as how the Bayh-Dole Coalition is recognizing and supporting that research.
I'm now actually far beyond that. 6 years ago, I'm working on vector that can express 4 different viruses. And once that comes to fruition, and if a company gets interested, I'm pretty sure at that point the companies will look at it because I got a call from Texas once, just maybe less than a year ago, when my vaccine was being publicized, and we had all those press. So there somebody called me from Texas, a rancher. He said that he just vaccinated. I think it was a Novartis or some. I don't remember exactly which company. It's exactly the same like Zoetis vaccine, trifold, BBDB, IBR. And he said he vaccinated his calves. And within 2 months following his vaccination, he lost 200 calves. And these were the viruses, because as I told you, this is a modified life, right? And he was really very interested when he found out about me, and he was asking me how long it's going to take and all that. So I think that a combination of getting companies interested and then marketing and educating the farmers, when they see the value in the long term, it may be a little more expensive than what they're getting for modified life, but in the long term, you don't have these losses, you don't have complication in the field, you don't have emergence of these more virulent viruses like BBDB. Then vaccine doesn't work anymore. And BBDB also causes persistent infection. So the vaccine virus can even go and persist because of all this circulation and mutation. And these persistent calves, when they're born, they look healthy, but they're shedding millions of viruses. And that's one of the problems that you deal with when you're working with BBDB. So I think the virologists know about it pretty well, and I'm pretty sure that if we can educate all the farmers about the benefits of these future vaccines, because, this modified life is a 60-year-old technology, or 60, 70 years old, and inactive vaccine doesn't work. If we have a protein vaccine, which is basically like inactive vaccine, it doesn't have the cellular immune response, which is very important, because without cellular immune response, the T cells that kills the cells that has the virus. And there are a lot of other functions the T cells do. Without that, it's very difficult to clear a virus and have good protection.
Dr. Chowdhury is a great example of what our public sector does. The research he's doing would not be done in a company. This is what the government does very well. It funds basic research. But before 1980, the government took away any inventions made by people like Dr. Chowdhury and tried to make them freely available. And as you just heard, the problem is it takes a lot of risk by companies to turn these concepts into a useful product. You have to go through regulatory procedures, you have to make it something that can be sold, and you have to market it. So the Bayh-Dole Act does that. It actually allows people like Dr. Chowdhury and LSU to get a patent and find a company. What the Bayh-Dole Coalition does is we're trying to explain to policymakers and the media and the public that this is critical to U.S. innovation. The kind of things that Dr. Chowdhury just talked about really don't happen very many places in the world except for here. So we started the Faces of American Innovation Award to highlight people like Dr. Chowdhury, and people are starting companies and people are funding companies. So people really understand how delicate this process is and how critical it is to our welfare, both economic welfare and also, as Dr. Chowdhury just talked about, protecting animals and protecting humans. One thing that Dr. Chowdhury kind of skipped over a little bit was, as he's talking about it, he spent 20 years of his life working on this. And he has to get USDA grants. That's not a simple thing to do, but he had a passion for doing something that hadn't been done before. This could be a potential breakthrough. Now we have to see if it is or not, but it could be a breakthrough. And like many other breakthroughs, he had to find a small company that was willing to take a risk. So we wanted to have people understand that, appreciate it, because the Bayh-Dole Act is under attack. We have people trying to return us to the old policies, thinking the government pays for research, everyone should be able to use it for free. And the problem is no one's going to develop a new technology, a breakthrough technology like Dr. Chowdhury's talking about, if you can't protect your investment. And the other thing is LSU has costs. LSU pays for the patent rights. So the Bayh-Dole Act means if he's successful, and we hope he's going to be, when they make sales, a percentage of that sales will go back to LSU to fund more research, and it'll also go to Dr. Chowdhury and whoever is the inventors named on the invention. So there's an incentive now for people to put in 20 years of their time as he's done, because if you are able to change the world, and this is happening not just in agriculture, but across the board, our public and private sector alliances are what's making us more competitive than China, than any other country in the world, but we can't take them for granted. So the Faces of American Innovation report is just trying to explain to people in simple English why people like Dr. Chowdhury and other people starting companies, they're taking risks, they're spending their own time. There's no guarantee this is ever going to work. But we have people willing to do that because the incentives are there. If you do succeed, you can benefit from it. And the biggest beneficiary are the end users, the farmers, the patients, people getting new jobs. So it's a virtual cycle, but again, we cannot take that for granted.
And again, great to hear about that cattle vaccine technology, and we're looking forward to staying up to date on how that goes through the pipeline. Let's go ahead and take a look at the closing markets.
It's time now for the Ag Matters PM Closing Market Summary, your source for market analysis and settlement prices from the day's trade in Chicago, courtesy of the folks at agmarket.net.
At the end of another trading day in the ag marketplace, we are here with Curt Kimmel of agmarket.net. First off, Curt, what are we seeing in the grain markets today?
Well, Riley, we held together today. The grain market continues to climb the wall of worry. So beef corn was up 2 cents on the day. It's up about 16 cents on the week. The beans were down about a quarter, a half cent, but they're up over 26 cents for the week. Wheat futures came back and closed 2 or 3 cents higher, and they're up about 8 cents. So market is holding in there, making some higher highs on this move. So we'll take it. But man, the export news just continues to come front and center. Continued talk that countries are buying ahead of the election here, but Japan bought 226,000 tons of corn, sold another 165,000 tons of corn to unknown, and 198,000 tons to beans to unknown. So next week's weekly export sales report's expected to show another good round of sales. This morning, we saw that 3.6 million metric tons of corn were sold as of last Thursday and 2.1 million metric tons of beans. So we continue to push this crop out the door here. And some analysts are starting to up their export projections. We are still early in the marketing year, and we got a long ways to go. But so far, these sales are taking place when we need them. Forecast wise, we've been extremely dry here in central Illinois. We're expected to receive some rain here Friday, so that'll help. Tillage practices have slowed down here. Seeing the field work, questionable about getting some anhydrous on, so we'll continue to monitor that. South American weather, they're looking at a favorable weather report. They got off to a slow start, but moisture continues to be in their forecast, helping them out. Tomorrow's Friday. One observation is the November grain options expire. So if you have some, particularly November bean puts and calls, take a look at them. And there are some November corn call puts and calls. Make sure you check in to kind of see where you are with those positions. But so far, big yields, big prices. We'll take it.
All right, Curt. And then on the other side of the ag marketplace in the livestock complex, how are the cattle and hogs looking today?
They were mixed today. As far as the grains go, with the livestock meal values are kind of the lower end of the range. So if you need to book some meal needs, might want to take a look at that. But the cattle was up $1.30 today in the D's. The D's hogs was down $1.50 spread, buying fat, selling leans on the spread. We'll be a lot smarter tomorrow afternoon. We'll have the cattle and feed report. On feed expectations 99.7, placements 96, and the marketings are expected to come in at 102. So that'll be the market maker after the close tomorrow. This morning's weekly export sales report showed we sold at 16 on the beef side of it. South Korea and China were the big takers there. Hogs on the pork side, exports was 22. That's down 42%. Mexico took 17, China 8.8. So this export on the pork's kind of slowed down a little bit. Thing on the hogs, the December contract had a key price reversal downside, made a new high for the move and closed below yesterday's low. So might want to keep an eye on maybe some lean hedges.
All right, Curt, lots of great information today. For those of our listeners who would like to get in touch with agmarket.net, how can they do that?
1-800-779-1515, or else go to agmarket.net. Click on Intel. That's where the ag market team puts a lot of their information there, Riley.
All right, great talking with you as always, Curt, and have a great rest of your week.
You bet. Take care.
All right. That again was Curt Kimmel of agmarket.net. We'll take a look at how the numbers close through the market window at iowaagnet.com.
December corn up 2.5 at 421.5. November soybeans down 1.25 at 996.25. December soybean meal down 460 at 310.40. Soybean oil up 94 cents at 44.33. Chicago wheat up 3 even at 581.5. Minneapolis spring wheat up 3 1/4 at 618 3/4. Kansas City hard red wheat up 1.5 at 587 even. December oats down 3 3/4 at 376 3/4. On the Merc, December live cattle up $1.37 at 189.25. November feeders up $1.30 at 248.52. Lean hogs down $1.52 at 78.65. Pork cutout went unchanged at 91.85. And November class 3 milk down 12 cents at 20.28.
And that's been a check of the markets here on Ag Matters PM. That also brings us to the end of today's episode. You can find all of our content on our website at iowaagnet.com. Also follow us on social media, Facebook, X, LinkedIn, and TikTok, and find our video content as well as previous episodes of AM PM on our YouTube channel. Subscribe and hit the notification bell to see when those videos go live. Don't forget as well our free morning, midday, and closing market podcast, as well as the Iowa Ag Matters podcast and Pods of Potential. You can find those on your favorite podcasting service, Apple, Amazon, Spotify, and Podbean. From the Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network studios in Des Moines, I'm Riley Smith. On behalf of Mark Magnuson, Andy Peterson, and Dustin Huffman, we thank you for watching. This has been Ag Matters PM.